Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. Hello everybody and welcome to episode 13 of the English with Kirsty podcast. And for the next couple of weeks I'm going to be looking at something which I know a lot of the people that I work with have said is a bit of an issue for them, something they struggle with. So I thought we'd take some time to look at this issue and I'll give you some tips about it. So it's talking about those informal situations where you're with other people, perhaps your colleagues, perhaps your customers, and you have to speak English with them. Maybe over lunch, maybe you go out for dinner, something like that. Or maybe it's just even in the coffee break between sessions at a conference or after a meeting. So it's a situation where it's not planned. You can't have a script, you can't have an agenda. Some people say that it's really easy. Well, not really easy because a lot of people don't like presenting, but you can definitely plan if you're going to speak about something at length, and you can learn all the vocabulary and you can go over what you're going to say. But in these situations you have to be spontaneous, and that's sometimes more difficult because you don't know what the other person's going to do, and you don't want there to be a horrible silence where you're both standing there looking at each other because you don't know what to say. So this couple of sessions is going to be looking at how to keep conversations going and avoid awkward silences. It's basically thinking about ways to stop the conversation fizzling out and to feel comfortable with that, because whether or not you're speaking another language, some people enjoy talking to other people more than others. So some people are naturally more talkative, but for everybody there are ways to make these conversations a bit more relaxed, a bit more fun. And I know that sometimes speaking another language can be a bit daunting, but if you practice, if you do it, it will get easier. And I say that because I know it's true, because I've done it with German as well. At first I really hated it, especially if there was a big group and I had to speak or just be part of that group, not even speak in front of them. And now it doesn't bother me because I have had enough practice speaking German to be able to do that without stumbling over sentences and struggling to think of words. So not just because I'm a language teacher, but also because I've been there, I'm a language learner and I've done it, I do know that it gets easier. So today we're going to look at 3 tips in relation to this, and then we're going to carry on with this next week as well. So the first thing is be an active listener. Don't be so focused on, oh no, what am I going to say next, that you're not actually listening to what the other person's saying, because that will give you clues. If somebody starts talking about their holiday or their children or their journey to wherever you are, you can ask more about that. You can ask for more information that they've given. You can ask a question related to that. You can show that you're interested by finding questions to ask. So don't just feel that you have to ask one question then move on to something else. If you're trying to lead the conversation, you can branch off from what people are saying, because that shows that you're interested as well. The other person thinks, okay, yeah, they are actually listening to me, because if they weren't listening they wouldn't have known this thing. So it's good to be an active listener and to pick up on things that they particularly like talking about, for example. Or maybe you can tell that they want to talk about something a bit more, so you can ask another question in relation to that. And when you are asking questions, it's good to think about the open-ended questions. So what, how, why, where, all these things. If you ask an open-ended question, or one that begins with these what, why, how, where, who kind of questions, you can't answer those questions with a yes or a no. It doesn't make sense. So if you're asking like did you, do you questions, you may just get a yes or no, and that doesn't do much for your conversation. But if you ask a question which makes them give a bit more, then it will help the conversation to flow, and you may have another question, or you may be able to share your own experiences, because you don't want it to feel like an interview either. They're just you asking questions all the time. You need to bring yourself and your experiences into the conversation as well. But asking these kind of questions it gives the other person an opportunity to give a bit more in terms of their answer. Okay, so the second thing is about language risks, and it's something that I've learned through experience, because I've walked out or finished conversations thinking, oh, that was a disaster. I could have said so much more, but I didn't dare because I wasn't sure of the word for, or I wasn't sure if I could explain this properly, and I just felt miserable afterwards. So don't do that. People are more interested in engaging with you. If it's a social setting, people want to talk to each other, so it doesn't matter if you make a mistake. It's not the end of the world. I know it feels like the end of the world sometimes if you feel you've made yourself stupid, but really the other person isn't sitting there waiting for you to make mistakes, and if they are, they're probably not someone you want to keep talking to anyway. So think about what you want to say. You may need to simplify it a bit. You may want to say more if you were speaking your native language, but it's okay to simplify things a bit. But the main thing is get your ideas out of your head and into the conversation, because it's not a nice feeling to walk away and wish that you'd shared something, or shared an idea about what could be done about something, or if you've got maybe experience in a similar situation that you could have shared that would have been relevant. Don't spend ages thinking about it and not saying it. So these risks, it's not much fun at the time, because you are taking a risk and making yourself feel a bit vulnerable, but at the end of the day it is worth it, because then you're bringing yourself into the conversation more. And the third thing is, don't feel that you have to talk as much as the other person or the other people around you, because just in any situation there will be people that talk a lot and people that talk less. And quantity isn't always quality. Some people talk and talk and talk, and you could have summarized what they said in a minute or so. Some people talk a lot and they do have a lot to share. It's really interesting to listen to them, but don't feel that you haven't got as much to give because you can't talk as much as someone else, because some people just struggle to get their ideas into words, and that means that they talk more. So it doesn't mean that somebody's more fluent than you because they talk a lot more. If English isn't their native language either, they may not be. They may be talking a lot and making a lot more mistakes than you would, but it's not a competition. Think about what you want to say and say that, and ask questions and engage, but don't be measuring yourself up against everybody else around you, because that will just depress you. There'll always be someone who can speak more fluently, or who says more, or who can think more quickly. That's just life. People are different. But if you focus on what you want to say, so focus on the people around you because you're interested in them and you want to engage with them, but it's not a competition about who can say the most or who can speak the best English, because if you're sharing ideas and experiences, that's not generally what people should be interested in. So I hope those 3 tips help. There are going to be more, because I have more to say on this subject, but I didn't want to put it all into one massive long podcast. So we'll be carrying on with this next week. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss the episode next week, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, on Stitcher, on TuneIn Radio, on Play FM. There are a number of places where it can be found. So yeah, if you want to make sure that you don't miss the episodes when they come out, you can subscribe to them and then it will be done for you automatically. So I hope you have a good week, and I'll see you again next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.